Good evening. Today is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2013, and this is the beginner's debate for the Toronto Debating Society. This evening, the debate topic is be it resolved that we should bring back extinct animals. Speaking for the government as Prime Minister for 7 minutes, please help me welcome Jenna.
Thank you, Speaker, Leader of Opposition, and members of the House. Our debate, we should bring back extinct animals, is defined. Extinct is defined as no longer in existence and died out. Animals is defined as a living fauna. The debate here is about whether we should bring back extinct animals as well as our ability to bring them back. We are not debating about whether we should bring back each and every extinct animal, but rather a species of animals that are beneficial to our society. My first point is that bringing back extinct animals would increase biodiversity and long-term genetic diversity. My second point is that bringing back extinct animals would offer new productive organisms for human use in harsh climates where today's are poorly adapted. My third point is that bringing back extinct animals will bring value back to our society. My last point is that bringing back extinct animals will give us an insight to prevent further extinctions and is a way for us to make up and restore back the species that became extinct directly because of human harm. So starting with my first point, bringing back extinct animals will increase biodiversity and long-term genetic diversity. We also need to be cautious that the current endangered species don't become extinct. Having a wide variety of numerous species are beneficial to our society. There are certain species of bees that are becoming extinct. Bees are beneficial to our society as they help control pollination. My second point is that bringing back extinct animals would offer new productive organisms for human use in harsh climates where today's are poorly adapted. Numerous medicines are obtained from chemicals that originate from animals, and only a minuscule portion of all the worldwide species have been examined by researchers for medical potential. Only 1.5 million species out of 14 million are well documented. The properties that have been discovered in the chemistry of some species have led to the founding of many beneficial medicines to our society, such as antibiotics, anti-cancer agents, painkillers, and blood thinners, to name a few. With this advantage of species and different genes from them, it is therefore beneficial for us to bring back extinct species in order to increase possibility of new discoveries. And beneficial discoveries from animals have helped us, and so if we bring them back, we can study the genes and anatomy to find cures and benefits for things such as diseases, pain, etc. And with my third point, bringing back extinct animals would bring value back to our society. Bringing back the extinction of species such as woolly mammoths would bring back carbon-fixing grass, as well as decrease greenhouse gas-releasing tundra. Siberia, for example, it was home 12,000 years ago to mammoths and other big grazing mammals. Back then, the landscape was not moss-dominated tundra, but grassy steppes. Sergei Zumov, who is a Russian ecologist and director of the Northeast Science Station in Cherkasy in the Republic of Sakha, has long argued that this was no coincidence, that the mammoths and numerous herbivores maintain the grassland by breaking up the soil and fertilizing it with their manure. Once they were gone, the moss took over and transformed the grassland into less productive tundra. So the mammoths were a relevant keystone to their region. They helped the environment at a healthier level with more productive tundra, and this is another good reason why extinct animals should be brought back. Also, according to Albert Einstein, when honeybees become extinct, humans would follow within 4 years. He argues that honeybees play a key role in the pollination of plants, which end up supplying food to humans and other animals. Without the plant bees, therefore, the plants will not be able to multiply, resulting in food shortage and an end to the human race. My point here is that species offer a certain value to us, and should they be extinct, then we are losing a benefit that they offer. As I have mentioned with the woolly mammoths, their loss in our society have resulted in less productive tundra. On to my fourth and final point. Bringing back extinct animals will give us insight to further prevent extinctions, and is a way for us to make up and restore back the species that became extinct directly because of human harm. When the extinct species are examined, we can learn what made them extinct and use that information to help that from preventing to other species. For example, birds have played a beneficial role in helping us in being aware of pollution problems. When bird populations decreased in the late 1950s, this is a warning sign for us to notice that this was due to pollution. Creatures that are directly connected with the environment and consume the basic elements without treatment can be a good indicator of the health of the environment and give a warning or signal in advance before the hazards start impacting human society. The bird populations that decreased in the late 1950s was due to the lethal impact of DDT. And DDT was banned in the USA in 1972. The point here is that if we were to lose species and just have the resilient ones, then it would be humans who may be the indicators of hazard. Having the birds were beneficial to warn us to prevent pollution damage to humans, as well as notice something that otherwise may have been overlooked. We can help develop more sustainable living conditions and techniques from endangered species. Bringing back extinct animals would provide insight into the genetic engineering world and why the species were extinct in the first place. What were the predispositions of the extinct species, and to relate to the current endangered species of today, as well as how the effects of their cause of their instinct could potentially impact humans. Since we are the only mammal on Earth that can bring back extinct species, and since we affected nature, then it is the honorable thing for us to do. Humans need to accept responsibility, and we need to protect our planet and its resources. Bringing back extinct animals would reestablish organisms that were lost due to calamity, as opposed to phasing out a species for a changing atmosphere, as it was these organisms that originally changed Earth's atmosphere and climate from inhospitable to inhabitable by us. So please, ladies and gentlemen, help me in passing the motion that extinct animals should be brought back. Thank you.
Thank you. To continue the debate, I invite the Leader of the Opposition to come up and speak for 7 minutes. Danièle.
Should we bring back extinct animals? The answer is a resounding no, and will make it easy for you to agree with the opposition to this motion. My colleague will elaborate on 3 types of reasons for not making it into practice: economical, technological, and ecological. Just to rebut the government, she brought some very excellent points that actually support our position to preserve habitats, to preserve our current biodiversity. If we increase the biodiversity by bringing back extinct animals, wouldn't that put additional pressure on current species? If we want to spend money, and I wasn't quite sure what we're looking for into these newly brought back species, while there are so many current abundant species just ready to be investigated and found a solution to our current problems. Then, as an argument to say that we should bring back extinct species, the woolly mammoth? Really? The bees, perhaps. The bees are not extinct, though. Anyway, we would be spending so much effort. Can you imagine creating an habitat for a woolly mammoth? How much you would have to feed them? Yes, they're nice and cute and woolly, but really? Anyway, my points are, you haven't touched on that at all. Who decide what is brought back? What is easy? What is cute? What is fuzzy, like a woolly mammoth? What species deserve to be brought back? My second point will be unforeseen consequences of bringing back extinct animals. And my third point will be the impact on the habitat of existing species, including humans, and the impact on the human behavior. First of all, who decide what is brought back? What species deserved to be brought back? And when there is a choice, and when there is a limit of resource, that my colleague is going to tell you in much more detail, there needs to be a prioritization. And who decides? And when there is a choice, there is a debate. And who will speak for the ugly toad? There is a terrible urgency to save threatened species and habitats. This is from a study by John Weens, an evolutionary biologist at Stony Brook University in New York. But as far as he can see, there's little urgency for bringing back extinct ones, like the woolly mammoth. Why invest millions of dollars in bringing in a handful of species back from the dead? That sounds like a zombie apocalypse to me, when there are millions waiting to be discovered, described, and protected. Then the Honorable Prime Minister talked about responsibility and honor. Assuming that we can bring them back, how many specimens do we have to create so that they're no longer considered to be extinct? We have to create a colony of them. Otherwise, the genetic pool is going to be too small. And who will protect them? Now, animals don't know about boundaries. They don't know about countries. And in Canada and the United States, they won't know the difference. So many decisions, so much discussion and thinking before we come to an agreement. When will that be possible? And in the end, who really benefits? Because if we're spending money, people are expecting to get money back. The second point is the animals that we're bringing back will never replace the animals that were extinct. The technology that exists today requires a host that exists. And therefore, the genetic material of that newly created species will never be the pure animal that we bring back from the past. If we bring back a passenger pigeon, is it really a passenger pigeon, or is it an hybrid of some sort? Some kind of engineered curiosity. Now, what is that newly created species can harbor disease or parasites better than the species that exist today? Think the Nile's virus being put on a newly created passenger pigeon. And again, animals' disease don't have a concept of borders. So who will clean up the mess? Who is accountable? Now, the impact on the habitat of existing species. Do we create a preserve for them? Do we create an habitat? And how much will that cost? We need to feed those newly created animals, or bees, or whatever you want to bring back. And whenever we interfere with nature, nature shows us who's the boss. And often, in the end, we're worse than we started with. How do we enforce the protection of the newly created species while we're fighting to keep so many species alive? You talked about Einstein, and certainly this is a clear example of what Einstein used to say. We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. Therefore, I urge you to vote against the motion.
Thank you, Danièle. I now invite the seconder for the government to come up for 5 minutes. Addy.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to spend the next 5 minutes reviewing the fantastic concerns that the opposition leader has raised and scared you to death here. And also, further on, moving on, revisit the pertinent points that my Prime Minister has made and try to support it with new information. So diving straight in, bringing back extinct animals, as in the science community is known as de-extinction. So I'm going to use this word a lot. De-extinction is the future hope for this planet. The leader of the opposition has completely scared you, just like President Bush scared after the 9/11 attacks, and the paranoia follows. Let's take one by one the points of the leader of the opposition. First, the additional pressure on the current habitat. And I think it was already answered later on by the Madam leader that Mother Nature takes care of its own self. So if you were to introduce species into an habitat, the law of nature will take care of the survival of fittest. But here, we are not talking about putting a pressure on one small area. The planet is large. We are reintroducing the species that were dead or that have completely been wiped out because of our misdoings. The next point was hilariously taken by Madam on the woolly mammoth. It's cute and cuddly and nice. Yes, very good. But woolly mammoth is not as different than the African elephant that roams the Serengeti today. Are they a burden to the earth? Should we just drop all of them dead and take all the ivory and run away? No. Mother Nature, let's give Mother Nature a little more benefit of doubt than we think she is. Next point was, who decides what to bring back? And that's a very good point. And I myself was struggling with it. Well, who decides what to bring back? There will definitely be a committee to decide what to bring back. How do we decide it? We look at the nature right now. Today, conservationists are giving feedback to the government, to the non-profit organizations, why an habitat is going down, why ecosystems are going down. The Great Barrier Reef at south of Australia is dying because multiple species are just dropping dead. They're wiped out. We could build up a case which species to be taken up, which species should not be taken up. And there will be, of course, a very healthy and a proper debate, as Madam mentioned. Next, Madam also mentioned that there could be certain parasites and diseases that may come or sprout because of these new species. Scientists have already come out or revived a very deadly living form you may not know. That is the flu virus. The flu virus claimed 50 million lives in 1918. It was revived back, not so that we start dropping dead. It's because for education, for scientific research. And nobody has died of those viruses. They are well controlled. There are committees and there is a proper protocol to handle these species. So I don't think a passenger pigeon will just fly here and there and we'll have an epidemic and everybody start dying. No. Now, there were some furthermore points that Madam had made is about geographical boundaries. The same question can arise with conservationists today. When you breed white rhinoceros in captivity and give it out into the savannas, you don't say, oh, this is my rhino and I need to benefit out of this rhino. It is a savanna. It's nature. Blue butterflies were bred in captivity in southwest England. They fly miles and miles when it comes to winter season. So, all this, these points or these concerns seem to be a little frivolous, little feeble. However, just to come back to the pertinent points that my Prime Minister made, very important biodiversity, we need to do it. yes, it's important to bring back certain species because they are core, they are vital. For example, dodos and the cavalier trees in the Mauritius, they're dying out. And if all other logical explanation does not sit well with you, just for moral obligation, de-extinction is a very important, good opportunity for us to redeem what we have done, the harm to these animals who roamed so nicely. So I leave you with just saying this. It's not too late to right the wrong. Mother's home to all it belongs. Please help me in put this motion out. Thank you.
Thank you, Adi. And to wind out the argument part of the debate, I would like to invite the seconder for the opposition for 5 minutes, Nicholas.
Good evening. Before I go into my additional information to support my partner, I'd like to respond to a few of the things that my honorable opponent has brought up. So first of all, I'd like to point out the fact that he made a very obvious attempt to redefine the debate. The very first point he made was we are only talking about bringing back species that we caused to extinction. Well, that wasn't actually mentioned by the government at any point in the time, and this is actually a huge difference because the government actually brought up the woolly mammoth. Did we make the woolly mammoth extinct? No. The end of the Ice Age did. The damn thing couldn't survive in the heat. So, and a further thing my opponent mentioned, that de-extinction is the future hope for the planet. Now, I'm actually interested in this because hundreds of species are going extinct every single day, most of them caused by humans, and he's saying that we should funnel all of our resources into focusing on some of these that have gone extinct and bringing them back. Well, what about the larger question at issue is, what about all the hundreds of species that are going extinct tomorrow and the day after and next year and in 10 years? So we're going to concentrate on these few that are going extinct now and then forget about the one, or not concentrate on the ones that are going extinct now, and instead funnel all of our resources into bringing back one or two or three of these ones that are no longer pertinent to whatever ecology we have left. And he also mentioned that we were trying to scare you. I put to you that we were just trying to bring this debate back into reality. Take it out from the clouds and make you think of the actual ramifications of what the government is proposing. So let me go into my own arguments real quick. So I have 3 points. I'll get to all of them if I can. So it's really tempting to try to undo the bad effects humans cause. And this is some common ground between myself, or our side, and the government. It's really tempting to want to bring back the Chinese river dolphin, the Tasmanian tiger, and all these animals that we've basically sent to extinction through destruction of the habitat and poaching. And in fact, you could argue it's part of our moral obligation to do something. Now, we do agree with this. We do agree with our opponents. Something needs to be done. But what? So here's where we disagree. That the way to deal with this, the bad impacts that humans are having on the environment, is to just reach into science's drawers, pull out these old animals, stick them back in the environment. We say no. We have to ground this debate in reality. Reality where limited resources and limited time and limited money and limited talent, these are all factors that we have to consider. So should we bring back extinct animals? No. No, we shouldn't. At least we shouldn't in light of what we know now. This is not something we should focus on. So, the type of cloning our opponents are suggesting requires millions of dollars and hundreds of hours of research and labor, all to bring back very few handful of species. How they decide that is up to them. They have a process for that, whatever. This process is even more difficult and expensive if you look back even further in time. So Corey Bradshaw, a journalist for the Australasian Science, says that even if the cost of bringing back these cloned animals goes down, that cost will still be higher than the technology required to do simple conservation, which would in fact have a much, much better effect. So right now, thousands of hectares of rainforest are being clear-cut daily, coral reefs are dying at a rapid pace, habitats are being polluted, wiped out by human activities, and we are responsible for hundreds of extinctions per year. Every dollar, minute, and person spent on stopping this depressing trend by researching green programs, buying up and protecting habitats would do much, much, much better than de-extinction as a program. Our opponents want us to concentrate on the animals that went extinct hundreds of years ago, or in some cases dozens of years ago, and try to bring them back without considering for a second that money and resources would be better spent saving the animals that will be extinct tomorrow or next year. How about a solution for that? The choice comes down to what would you rather use your resources for? To quote John Wines, which the leader of the opposition already did, there's clearly a terrible urgency to save threatened species and habitats. And as far as I can tell, there's little urgency for bringing back extinct ones. Little urgency. We're talking about what's most urgent, where we should use our resources. So, to sum up, I'd just like to say that de-extinction is a classic example of treating a symptom and not the illness. It's the same with putting water in a leaking bucket, except the bucket has a golf-sized hole, and our opponents propose to fill it with a thimble. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, everybody take in what you've heard. We will now start the summations. And I will invite the leader of the opposition to come up for 2 minutes to summarize the opposition side's arguments and remind you of why she believes you should vote against the motion. Danièle.
Extinction is nothing unusual. After all, 99% of species that have ever existed have gone extinct. There's a good reason why a species that is not fit for the current environment disappears over time. Next points were economical. De-extinction is a distraction from the pressing work required to stave off mass extinction. It is also an allocation of fund that, where is it coming from? Technological. Life is so fragile. There are so many elements that need to work just right at the right moment for us to live and to function. It is incredible that we're living at all. Technology may improve, but our right to create life without guarantee that we can sustain that life with quality is irresponsible. And who decides? A committee. A committee made of who? Who decides on the committee? And who cleans up after the mess? Because there will be some mistakes made, and we need to be able to correct them. And what will be the impact on the human behavior? We're currently destroying habitats, changing the climate, creating more and more pollution. And also, what about these rare species? Will they be hunted and poached? Where nature or God has relied on mutation and a lot of reproduction activities, yes, Michael, that means sex, to have we may even call it intelligent design. Please make the only logical decision, which is to defeat the motion.
And to complete the debate for this evening, for the final 2 minutes, I would like to invite Jenna up as the Prime Minister.
The Leader of Opposition mentioned that life is fragile. So why is it that nothing has been done to protect it and help these endangered and extinct animals? Thus, one reason why bringing back extinct animals is such a reasonable idea. And we're also not saying to stop conservation. To summarize why extinct animals should be brought back, by doing so will help us with medical research and finding cures. The Leader of Opposition mentioned that people expect to get money back, but people are getting value back by having extinct animals as an investment in medical research and investing in the planet and resources, such as the beneficial effect the woolly mammoth had on tundra. So much damage has been done to our planet, and we need to correct this. So please help us in passing this motion that extinct animals should be brought back. Thank you.
Here we are. Thank you. That concludes the debate. I would now like to invite our adjudicator to the front to adjudicate the debate that we have just heard. For 7 minutes, please welcome Dante.
Hello. For our beginners debate, Dante. I'm also a beginner adjudicator. A big thanks to Dave for helping me prepare for today. I will now proceed through today's debate in the order it was approached and comment on each section, giving the strengths and weaknesses of each side. All right. Let's start with the argument section. This defines how well each side presented their case. For the government, the Prime Minister Jenna did an amazing job of presenting all her arguments in a great structure ordered and provided excellent content backing up each part of it. Not only that, but she also took the time to define the resolution for today. So I think it was a very, very good job. The opposition seconder, even though he only had one argument, also presented an argument somewhat well. And not only that, but took some time to rebuild the Prime Minister's argument as well. So I think that's actually a great strategy used by the government in this situation. The leader of the opposition also presented in an equally great way her arguments. Each argument was clearly structured. We got evidence for each argument. The leader of the opposition, the Prime Minister presented us with arguments about biodiversity, possible uses for animal products and value of society, and then the leader of the opposition went and presented us with pretty much opposite arguments with respect to each one of these points. So again, very, very good approach on both sides. However, the opposition seconder, I was kind of lost in the presentation of his arguments. It seemed I still managed to pick up two arguments, but they were interwoven with his rebuttal, so I was unable to completely discern where the argument started, especially when he was talking about prevention versus recreation. It seemed like I could have used more information on that point. Even though he had been set up by he had been provided a great setup by the leader of the opposition. When we reached that point in his speech, I would have preferred to see it elaborated a little further. So for the general section of argument, it was very, very, very close for both sides. But I particularly felt that the government presented a more compelling argument at this point. However, for a beginner's debate, both sides presented more than a very, very high caliber of arguments and very good points from either side. When we reached content, I have to say I was flabbergasted by the amount of names and numbers thrown at me from every source. Even names I didn't expect to hear, such as Albert Einstein, came up in this debate. So it was a very, very lively from both sides. The Prime Minister, for every point she made, she presented information about the bees in decline, the birds and their detection of DDT. However, the government seconder failed to provide enough evidence or enough content for his argument. However, he did provide some content in his rebuttal. I would have particularly liked to heard where that quote was from, that last quote when you were ending your speech. If you could have at least. Oh, it's your own. Oh, okay. So the greatest wisdom comes from oneself. But again, perhaps not in my analysis of this. Just like that, the leader of the opposition also had great content for each argument that she made. Each argument was followed by the appropriate quotation from a book from an evolutionary biologist and such. It was very well done. The opposition seconder also provided good content for the arguments he provided. Again, quoting in parallel John Wines the same way that the leader of the opposition quoted him. So it was a nice teamwork in that part. For the section of content, I feel that the opposition actually performed stronger in this section because of that, because of the seconder providing the right content. Now, moving on to rebuttal and refutation, which is really the spicy part of the debate. I feel for the government side, it mostly relies on the government seconder. If the government seconder fails at this job, it's usually a bad thing for the government. In this case, it just so happened that the government seconder did not fail at the job. He actually did a great job. He fully addressed every single point that was made up to that point by the opposition and went through it each button by button. And not only that, but he went even further to rebuild the Prime Minister's points about the woolly mammoth and rebutted the rebuttals. So you got a rebutting of rebuttals. It's just amazing. That said, so for that reason, the government just really took this entire rebuttal section just because of the work of the government seconder. So amazing job there. The opposition, I felt like the opposition did meet all the points. You did get through them in the list, but it was just like a checklist. I didn't really see the logical vis-a-vis, like the logical fronts to fight the government's arguments. So even though I really enjoyed the way that you used Albert Einstein's quote, a different Albert Einstein quote to counter out the other one. So that was pretty cool. So for that reason, the government swept away the rebuttal and refutation. For teamwork, I'd actually say that the opposition did a great job here. It seems like they prepared beforehand, so the leader of the opposition knew exactly what was going to happen. However, that and the opposition seconder caught up on that. However, that kind of backfired in the summation. I'll get to that in a second. And the government, great teamwork, backing up, rebuilding arguments. However, I feel like in the summation, a lot of that teamwork kind of trickled and fell down. So next time, probably in the summation, to have a recap of all the arguments and all the rebuttals would be a great idea. And finally, for style and rhetoric, I feel like the Prime Minister, her time management needed a little more work, and maybe it was a very clear speech, but also kind of flat and a little more emotion would work. Aside from that, every other debater presented a decent, especially the opposition, the government seconder and the leader of the opposition. And the final score, and for style and rhetoric, the opposition took the play. And then, so the final score comes down to 68-62 in favor of the government. So thank you very much. Please come by to claim the And the best debater of the night goes actually to the beginner debater today, is for Jenna, for an amazingly structured opening, great definition, and a clear summation. So thank you. And happy birthday.
Thank you, Dante, for that adjudication. And I have the pleasure and the privilege to award the popular vote trophy for this evening. And the award is going to be given to the opposition with a score of 10-3. I will And that, folks, is the debate. We are done. I would like to invite, and again, pardon me, congratulations to the beginner debaters on their performance this evening.